Hello everyone, my name is Priscila Alves. I'm a PhD student at University of Exeter, and today I'm going to present for you a little bit of my PhD in this article, which the title is Evaluation of a Socio-Environmental Approach for Disaster Risk Management. First, I want to present why is the socio-environmental approach needed in water research studies. First, we have here the disaster risk definition, which says that the disaster risk is the likelihood of severe alterations in the normal functioning of a community or society, which is the exposure, due to a hazard interacting with vulnerable social conditions. So that's why we put here this framework, which is showing that the disaster risk is the combination of the hazard, vulnerability, and exposure. The disaster risk will have impacts in the city, in the catchments, and because of it, it will be necessary to apply mitigation strategies according to the hazard, but also according to the vulnerability and exposure of the city or the catchment or the system. So that's why it is the social environmental approach is needed, because it can combine the engineering environmental sciences with the social science to characterize better the system, propose mitigation solutions, and improve services. So the goal today of my presentation is to develop and evaluate a socio-environmental approach to identify key challenges and solutions to flooding and water shortage management in an urban city of Brazil. So now presenting only about the study case. As I was saying before, the city is in Brazil. The name of the city is Campina Grande. So you can see now in the second map on the screen that the city is included in the semi-arid region of Brazil, which has drought. So the city has flooding and water shortage hazards. The city is an urban city with more than 400,000 inhabitants. So you can see in the other map all the urbanized areas in the city. But at the same time, the city lacks in having water-related hazard maps and information, and also has management and legislation issues like the lack of public policies and the lack of public participation in water policies. Now presenting about the participatory approach. So the socio-environmental approach was translated in this participatory approach, which was called PLANEJEEE project, which means to plan extreme events, from Portuguese planejar eventos extremos. And we applied the participatory approach with citizens, authorities, and also specialists from the city. So we collected 172 survey answers. In the city, I had the help of other 10 students from civil engineering bachelors of the Federal University of Campina Grande. And we applied all of the questionnaires between May and June of 2019. Here you can see some photos that the residents they sent to us with flooding cases, and also we collected some news and watched some videos in order to apply better the questionnaires in the city. As I said, we also had the participation of authorities and specialists from the city. So in the end, we had the participation of 27 specialists and policymakers in our workshop and focus groups. Also in June of 2019, and also we had some survey answers of 22 of these participants in the city. You can see here some photos of the workshop and the focus groups, where we had a lot of discussions about the problems in the city related to the water shortage and also flooding. So now I'm going to present some of the first results that we got with the participation of residents, authorities, and specialists. So the first one, we divided the questionnaire for residents in a few areas, such as social and economic characteristics, and also previous experience. The questionnaires were built with a 5-point Likert scale. So here you can see that 94.8% of the residents had the flooding experience before, and at the same time almost 96% had the water shortage, which shows that the city has both problems. But the severity of these hazards events are very differently, where almost 60% affirmed that the severity of the flooding is very high, but with the water shortage, the severity is kind of divided in all of the classifications between 5 and 1 Likert scale. The second part of the third part of the questionnaire was about the risk information and management. So here I just put 2 questions for you to see. We asked how do you usually inform yourself about extreme weather events, just in order to see how people usually keep checking about the hazards. What is interesting in this question is that only 0.4% of the residents affirmed that they have the information about the hazards from the public authority, which can show that the communication is not very good in the city. So we asked another question only about it, about this part, about warnings and about information, and 71.5% of the residents affirmed that they don't have at all information at all about the flooding. And as I was saying, to the water shortage, it's a bit different. It's spread between all of the classifications. Another part of the questionnaire was about some measures, self-protective measures for flooding and water shortage, just in order to see how the residents cope with both hazards. And many of them have some measures in place in their households, but what is very interesting is that usually corresponds just to cheaper measures. So for the flooding, they keep storing valuable in upper floors, so almost 45% of them. About the barriers, so almost 40% of them, they had flood barriers they constructed, or they bought some barriers and applied in their households. At the same time, to the water shortage, they have some water butts, almost 80%. They also try to have shorter showers and wash dishes with less water. So they are kind of adapted to do this in normal life because they always have the water shortage. The other part of the participatory approach was with the authorities and experts. So we divided the city in 4 areas, A, B, C, and D, as you can see on the maps. And we discussed problems in these areas with vulnerability and exposures information, as I was saying for you in the beginning of the presentation. And some challenges that they say is that there is a little dialogue between academic authorities and citizens, and also restricted funds and budget, lack of space in legislation to apply new measures, and also the solutions that should be applied is increase awareness and strengthen legislation, participatory planning. So in the end, we divided all of these challenges and solutions in multi-scales, as you can see on this table now. And we have management, legislation, stakeholders' participation and collaboration, and aspects related to the location of residents, so the exposure of them, the vulnerability of the place. There is a need for legislation improvement. There is a need to build the risk perception and coping capacity of citizens. So we divided all of these in multi-scale challenges and solutions. So just to conclude all of the aspects of the presentation. So the socio-environmental approach allows to tackle multi-scale challenges and to propose applicable solutions with the maximization of multiple benefits. Also, the participation of stakeholders enable the identification of challenges and solutions for water management regarding not only the hazards itself, but also vulnerability and exposure. And the promotion of engagement between stakeholders is an opportunity to increase dialogue, participation, and coordination in the planning process and advance urban resilience. So that's it. Thank you so much for listening to me. If you have any questions, just ask and we can keep speaking about it. Thank you very much.